The sun beamed gently on the morning of Oliver's 60th birthday, casting a soft light over the familiar streets of his neighborhood, where he had spent most of his life. It was a place that carried memories, both good and bad, tucked into each corner and alleyway. Oliver, a humble and soft-spoken man, slowly stirred from sleep, stretching his aching joints, a constant reminder of the long years he had worked as an accountant. The job hadn't been glamorous, but it had provided a steady rhythm to his life, something he had always found comfort in. For Oliver, routine was safe, predictable. He had never asked for more. He lived in a modest two-story house with his wife, Anna, who had always been the more ambitious one between them. While he preferred the quiet and familiarity of his work, Anna thrived in the fast-paced corporate world as an executive with a sharp wit and a sharper tongue. He often marveled at her drive, how easily she navigated through the business world, scaling the corporate ladder while he remained grounded in his quiet, steady job. He supported her through it all, proudly attending her work events and celebrating her achievements, always feeling a part of her success. On this particular morning, as he sat with a cup of coffee in hand, Oliver allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. His 60th birthday felt like a significant milestone. He thought back to his childhood in a small town, where his parents had instilled in him the value of hard work and integrity. Those early lessons had shaped his entire life, guiding him through the years and into his marriage with Anna. Their marriage, like any other, had seen its share of joy and struggles, but Oliver had always done his best to be a good husband. He wasn't one to dwell on the past or future, but today, he found himself wondering what was next. He dreamed of traveling, of finally visiting the places he had only read about in books. He hoped Anna would share those dreams with him. More than anything, he wanted to spend time with their grandchildren, to pass on the wisdom he had gained over the years. Above all, he hoped their marriage would continue to thrive, believing it was as strong as ever. The day ahead was filled with quiet excitement. Anna had planned a party for him, inviting close friends and family to celebrate. Despite her busy schedule, she had made the time to arrange everything, and Oliver appreciated her effort. As the house buzzed with last-minute preparations, Anna moved through the rooms with her usual commanding presence, organizing every detail with precision. Watching her, Oliver felt a surge of pride. She had always been the vibrant force in their relationship, a whirlwind of energy and confidence, and he loved her for it. She had even hinted at a surprise that would make the evening unforgettable. As the guests began to arrive, the house filled with warmth and laughter, the clinking of glasses mingling with the sounds of old friends catching up. Oliver moved through the crowd, chatting with people he hadn't seen in years, sharing stories and memories. He felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the life he had built and the people who had gathered to celebrate with him. As the sun set, casting a golden hue across the horizon, Oliver took a moment to absorb it all. The party was everything he could have hoped for, a celebration of the life he and Anna had created together. From across the room, he watched his wife, graceful and poised as she mingled with the guests. His heart swelled with appreciation for the woman she was, and for a fleeting moment, everything felt perfect. Later, as the evening wore on and Oliver headed to the kitchen to grab more drinks, he paused in the hallway, savoring the distant sounds of laughter and celebration. It had been a perfect day, a fitting reflection of a life well lived. But as he neared the kitchen, the low murmur of voices stopped him in his tracks. At first, he thought nothing of it, just a couple of guests seeking a quiet moment away from the party. But when he pushed the door open, the scene before him made his blood run cold. Amidst the clutter of dishes and half-empty glasses stood Anna, his wife, wrapped in the arms of a younger man, Luke, her co-worker. The world seemed to tilt as Oliver stared at them, struggling to comprehend what was happening. His heart pounded in his chest as a wave of disbelief washed over him. Anna and Luke hadn't noticed him yet, too absorbed in their secret embrace. But Oliver's breath caught in his throat, a strangled sound escaping him. It was enough to shatter the moment. They turned, Anna's eyes widening with surprise, while Luke's smug expression slowly morphed into something more defiant. "What's going on here?" Oliver's voice trembled with both shock and anger. The room felt like it was closing in, the walls pressing in on him as he waited for an explanation. Anna straightened, her gaze cool and unapologetic. "You weren't supposed to see this," she said, her tone flat, as if what he had just witnessed was nothing more than an inconvenience. "But since you did, let's talk about it." "Talk?" Oliver's voice cracked. "You want to talk about this? You're cheating on me, Anna. In our house. During my birthday party. Have you completely lost your mind?" Luke, still leaning casually against the counter, smirked. "Relax, old man," he sneered. "What are you going to do about it? Anyway?" The words stung like a slap, a taunt that ignited a fury in Oliver that he had never felt before. Years of trust, love, and loyalty had been shattered in an instant, leaving him standing in the ruins of his life. "You think this is funny?" Oliver's voice was low, his fists clenching at his sides. "You think you can just waltz in here and destroy my life without consequences?" Anna stepped forward, her voice sharp. "Oliver, let's be real. I deserve to be happy, and things have changed. I'm tired of pretending. Now just go." Her words, cold and detached, cut through him like a knife. It was as if their entire life together had meant nothing. And then Luke, adding salt to the wound, laughed. "Yeah, face it. You're just not enough for her anymore." The rage that had been simmering inside Oliver finally erupted. Years of pent-up frustration, hurt, and betrayal exploded in a single moment. He lunged at Luke, fists flying. The younger man, caught off guard, staggered back as Oliver's fury overwhelmed him. Anna screamed, trying to pull Oliver away, but there was no stopping him. The kitchen turned into a battleground, glass shattering and furniture crashing as the fight unfolded. "Oliver, stop. You're going to hurt someone." Anna's voice cut through the chaos, her tone frantic and trembling. But Oliver couldn't hear her, couldn't think beyond the red haze clouding his vision. He was lost in a storm of rage. It was only when Luke crumpled to the floor, dazed and bloodied, that Oliver paused, his breath coming in shallow, ragged gasps. His hands trembled as he stared down at the damage he'd done. A sickening mixture of satisfaction and horror washed over him. Anna stood frozen, her face pale, her eyes wide with disbelief. She took a step back, shaken by what she had just witnessed. "Oliver, what have you done?" Her voice was barely more than a whisper. Without thinking, Oliver's hand struck her face in a swift, violent motion. Time seemed to freeze as the sound of the slap echoed in the air. It was in that moment, that very second, that the full weight of what had happened crashed over him like a tidal wave. The betrayal, the rage, and now the violence. His chest tightened as the reality hit, his mind struggling to process what he'd become. The sounds of the party in the background, the laughter, the clinking of glasses, felt like they belonged to another world, one far removed from the chaos that had erupted in the kitchen. Oliver's legs felt unsteady as he stumbled back, the weight of his actions pressing down on him like a boulder. His entire life was crumbling before his eyes. The perfect evening had turned into an unbearable nightmare. The celebration, once filled with joy and light, had descended into ruin. The chaos in the kitchen spilled out into the house, rippling through the party like a shockwave. Glass shattered, voices raised, and guests turned their heads, confused and uneasy. The laughter that had filled the air only moments ago faded, replaced by a heavy tension that hung like a dark cloud. "What's going on?" someone asked, the question cutting through the growing murmur of concern. Friends and family exchanged nervous glances, unsure of how to respond to the sudden disruption. Oliver, his heart hammering in his chest, pushed through the crowd, ignoring the bewildered stares and hushed whispers. Anger and humiliation burned in his veins as he fought to escape the prying eyes. Without a word, he stormed out of the front door, slamming it shut behind him as he stepped into the cool night air. His breath formed visible puffs in the crisp evening, but he hardly noticed. He walked down the street, his steps aimless and heavy, the distant sounds of the party fading behind him. Every step echoed with the betrayal that had unfolded just minutes ago. His mind played the scene over and over again. Anna in the arms of another man in their kitchen during his birthday. The weight of it was suffocating. Back inside, Anna stood frozen, her composure slipping as the weight of the situation settled over her. The eyes of their guests were on her now, their judgment evident. She knew she had to regain control, had to salvage what little she could from the wreckage of the night. Forcing a brittle smile, she raised her voice, trying to sound composed. "Please, everyone," she called out, her voice barely steady. "I'm so sorry for the disturbance. It was just a misunderstanding. Please, enjoy the rest of the evening." The explanation was weak, flimsy at best, but it was enough to stop the immediate questions. Slowly, hesitantly, the guests returned to their conversations, though the mood in the room had soured. The tension hung in the air like a thick fog. Anna could feel their eyes on her, the weight of their scrutiny pressing down on her chest. Luke, still nursing the bruise from Oliver's blow and his wounded pride, quietly slipped out of the room, not wanting to face the aftermath of their actions. Anna watched him go, her emotions a chaotic swirl of anger, regret, and shame, barely masked by her fragile exterior. As the evening dragged on, the party slowly petered out. Guests began to leave, offering awkward farewells and concerned glances. The damage was done, and there was no undoing it. Anna knew what she had to do next. She had to find Oliver. Later that night, she found him sitting alone on a park bench, bathed in the soft glow of the moonlight. He looked small, hunched over, staring out at nothing. The weight of the day clung to him like a heavy cloak. As she approached, her footsteps soft, Oliver didn't look up. His gaze remained fixed on a distant point, his expression unreadable. "Oliver," Anna said, her voice quieter now, trying to gauge his mood. "We need to talk about what happened." Silence hung between them, thick and oppressive. Oliver's jaw clenched, his eyes never meeting hers. The distance between them felt vast, as if they were standing on opposite sides of a chasm that neither of them knew how to cross. "This isn't working anymore, Oliver. We've been drifting apart for years," Anna said, her voice gaining momentum, as if saying the words aloud made them truer. "Maybe it's time we face reality and end this." "End this?" Oliver repeated, his voice raw with disbelief. "You want to end it? You destroy everything we built together, and now you think walking away is the solution." Anna folded her arms across her chest, her posture defensive. "I'm just being realistic, Oliver. We haven't been happy for a long time. I've worked hard for my career, for my independence. I won't let you drag me down." The words hit Oliver like a punch to the gut. "Drag you down?" he repeated, his voice rising in anger. "I supported you. I was there when no one else was. And this is what I get in return." "You never understood," Anna snapped, her frustration bubbling to the surface. "I need more than what you can give me, Oliver. I want a divorce, and I'll take what's mine. You're not going to stand in my way." The finality of her words hung in the air, suffocating and sharp. Oliver's chest tightened as the realization hit him. Anna wasn't backing down. She would fight him for everything, and she wouldn't hesitate to tear him apart in the process. With a cold glance, Anna turned on her heel and walked away, her footsteps echoing in the quiet night. Oliver stood motionless, watching her go, the weight of her threat sinking in. His whole world was unraveling. Alone once again, Oliver slumped back onto the bench, his thoughts racing, a whirlwind of memories and emotions. He thought back to their years together, trying to pinpoint the moment when everything had started to fall apart. When had Anna become a stranger? How had he missed the signs that their marriage was crumbling beneath them? The night dragged on, and Oliver's mind churned with questions, regrets, and anger. He realized, somewhere in the midst of his spiraling thoughts, that he had lost himself long ago. He had given so much of himself to a woman who no longer cared, and now he was left to pick up the pieces. But beneath the layers of shock and hurt, a resolve began to form. He couldn't let Anna take everything from him. He wouldn't let her betrayal define him. He had survived 60 years of life's trials. He would survive this too. As the first light of dawn crept through the curtains, Oliver sat at the kitchen table, the events of the previous night still raw in his mind. But beneath the pain, there was a new determination. He needed a plan. He had to protect himself, reclaim his life, and face the battles ahead. The first step Oliver needed to take was to get legal advice. He grabbed his phone and called a lawyer that a trusted colleague had recommended. He needed clarity on his rights and to understand how best to handle Anna's looming divorce threats. The conversation with the attorney was eye-opening, if not a little overwhelming. The lawyer walked him through the intricacies of marital property, the importance of keeping records, and how proof of Anna's infidelity could tip the scales in his favor during the divorce. Equipped with this newfound knowledge, Oliver knew gathering evidence of Anna's betrayal was essential. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but protecting himself required measures he had never imagined. He began documenting everything: her sudden late nights, the frequent work-related excuses, and of course, the horrifying scene with Luke at his birthday party. He built a paper trail piece by piece. Despite the bleakness of the situation, Oliver found solace in the fact that he wasn't completely alone in this. He needed someone reliable, someone who could offer support and guidance through the stormy waters ahead. That's when he thought of Julia, an old friend from college. Julia was no-nonsense, sharp-minded, and had a strong sense of justice. If anyone could help him navigate the mess his marriage had become, it was her. They met at a familiar coffee shop they used to frequent, a quiet corner where they often caught up. As Oliver laid out his story, Julia listened closely, her expression growing more resolute. "Oliver, you deserve better," she said, her voice steady with conviction. "You've been loyal, and now it's time to stand up for yourself. Show Anna you won't be pushed aside." Her words struck a chord deep within Oliver. Together, they began formulating a plan to counter Anna's divorce threats. Julia suggested hiring a private investigator, someone to collect undeniable evidence of Anna's affair, a move that, while distasteful, could be crucial when the time came. "Think of it as your safety net," Julia urged. "You need to be prepared for anything she might throw your way. This isn't just about splitting assets. It's about protecting your dignity, your future." Julia's advice spurred Oliver into action. A sense of renewed purpose surged within him. He began strategizing, planning his next steps with care. Around Anna, he maintained a calm facade, giving no hint of his real intentions while he discreetly gathered information that would help him down the line. In a quiet, calculated move, Oliver also began securing his finances. He opened a separate bank account and shifted funds, protecting himself from any potential financial ambush Anna might attempt. It was a small step, but it gave him a sense of control amid the chaos. As the days went by, Oliver became more adept at navigating the fragile dynamic in his home. He remained cordial but distant with Anna, engaging in minimal conversation and never revealing what he knew. It was a careful dance, requiring constant vigilance. At the same time, he began focusing on something he had long neglected: his own well-being. He took up running, letting the rhythmic pounding of his feet on the pavement clear his mind. The physical exertion brought him clarity, helping him work through the emotional turmoil he faced. He started to see things with sharper perspective. Oliver also reached out to old friends, people he had let slip from his life during the years he had been consumed by his marriage. Their warmth and support reminded him of who he used to be before his relationship with Anna overshadowed everything else. With them, he found a renewed sense of community, a reminder that there were still people who cared about him, who saw his worth. Little by little, Oliver felt himself strengthening. Each passing day brought him closer to the inevitable battle ahead. He knew the road wouldn't be easy, but the betrayal had awakened something inside him. Something resilient, something determined. He wasn't just fighting to preserve his dignity, he was fighting for the life he had spent years building. Sitting in his quiet home, Oliver could feel the weight of the future bearing down on him. The journey ahead would be grueling, but it was one he had no choice but to take. He had come too far to let Anna destroy everything without a fight. Eventually, the day arrived. The courtroom was a stark, sterile environment, far removed from the chaotic warmth of the birthday party that had ignited this chain of events. The air inside was thick with tension as the divorce proceedings were set to begin. Oliver sat on one side of the room, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. He had spent weeks preparing for this moment, every detail meticulously thought through. He had done everything in his power to protect himself. Beside him, Julia sat quietly, her presence a calming force amidst the tension. She had been his anchor throughout this ordeal, helping him navigate every legal and emotional challenge along the way. Oliver took a deep breath. He was ready to face whatever came next. Across the courtroom, Anna sat with an air of confidence, her posture straight, her face a mask of icy control. She had always excelled at appearing composed, and today was no exception. She was flanked by a high-powered attorney, a figure known for turning even the most difficult cases in his client's favor. It was clear Anna intended to claim what she believed was hers. The trial commenced with Anna's lawyer stepping forward, delivering a polished narrative. He painted her as the victim, trapped in a deteriorating marriage, and claimed that her financial contributions and independence justified her demands for a significant share of their assets. Every word was carefully chosen, designed to make Anna appear reasonable, even deserving of more than half of what they had built. Oliver's heart thudded in his chest as he listened. This was the moment he had dreaded for weeks, the one where it all felt like it could slip away. But despite the anxiety gnawing at him, he stayed calm. He had prepared for this, collecting the evidence, building his case with meticulous care. When his lawyer stood, the courtroom seemed to still in anticipation. "Your Honor," his lawyer began with confidence, "we intend to present evidence of not only Mrs. Mitchell's infidelity, but also her misconduct in the workplace, which we believe will be pivotal in determining the division of assets." A hush fell over the room, all eyes turning to Anna. For the first time, her mask of composure cracked just a little. She shifted uncomfortably in her seat. The evidence came out piece by piece, methodical and precise. Photos, text messages, and reports from the private investigator. Each piece painted a vivid picture of Anna's betrayal. There were documents outlining her affair with Luke, along with records of her violations at work, ethical breaches that could no longer be ignored. Every word, every image slowly chipped away at the controlled image Anna had always maintained. As the lawyer presented email exchanges and texts between Anna and Luke, the atmosphere in the courtroom thickened. Each revelation felt heavier than the last. Oliver could see the ripple effect in the room, as the weight of Anna's deception became clearer to everyone present. Anna's attorney tried to object, but it was too late. The damage had already been done. Even the judge now looked at Anna with a different expression, one of quiet scrutiny. "Mrs. Mitchell," the judge's voice rang out, firm and deliberate. "These are serious accusations. Do you have a response?" For the first time since the trial began, Anna hesitated. Her once unshakable demeanor faltered, and she glanced toward her attorney for help. But even he seemed caught off guard, momentarily unsure of how to salvage the situation. Anna shifted in her seat, her discomfort evident. "Your Honor," she started, her voice tight, "my personal life should not be used to influence the division of assets. I've worked hard for my career, for everything I have. That should be the focus." "Perhaps," the judge replied evenly, "but character and conduct are integral in determining the fair division of property, and this court must consider all relevant factors." As the proceedings stretched on, Oliver felt the momentum shift. He could sense that things were tilting in his favor. Witnesses were called to testify, corroborating the evidence laid out against Anna. Former colleagues took the stand, speaking of her erratic behavior at work, and friends who had witnessed her infidelity shared their observations. With every new testimony, Anna's case crumbled further. The judge eventually called for a recess to deliberate. Oliver sat in the courtroom, his mind racing. Despite everything that had come to light, the uncertainty of what would happen next hung over him like a dark cloud. He had fought hard, but it was out of his hands now. When the judge finally returned, the room was silent, the tension thick in the air. Oliver held his breath. After reviewing all the evidence presented, the judge said, his tone measured, "This court finds in favor of Mr. Mitchell. Mrs. Mitchell's actions, both in her personal and professional life, have been deemed detrimental. The division of assets will reflect this. Mr. Mitchell will retain the majority of the shared assets, and there will be no spousal support awarded. A wave of relief swept through Oliver. He felt the tension drain from his body, the tight knot of anxiety that had lived in his chest for months slowly unraveling. Next to him, Julia gave his arm a supportive squeeze, her eyes filled with pride. Across the room, Anna sat motionless, her face ashen, stunned by the reality of what had just transpired. Despite everything she had done, Oliver couldn't help but feel a twinge of sympathy. They had shared a life once. There had been love once. The end of their marriage, though necessary, was still a bittersweet moment. Outside the courthouse, the day was bright and warm, a jarring contrast to the emotional intensity that had unfolded inside. Oliver stood for a moment, letting the sunshine hit his face, breathing in the fresh air as if he hadn't done so in months. He had won, not out of vengeance but to protect what he had spent a lifetime building. And though the road ahead might be filled with echoes of the pain he'd endured, he was ready for it. Stronger now, clearer now. As he and Julia walked away from the courthouse, Oliver felt lighter, like a weight had finally been lifted from his shoulders. For the first time in a long while, he could imagine a future. One where he was free to rebuild, to rediscover himself, to start anew. He allowed himself a small, satisfied smile, knowing that he had taken back control of his life. In the weeks that followed, the fallout from the trial rippled through Anna's world. The scandal of her affair with Luke, paired with the evidence of her misconduct at work, spread quickly. Her once promising career was in ruins. The company, which had once been the platform for her ambitions, couldn't afford to keep her after the disgrace. The dismissal was swift and without ceremony. All that she had built, all that she had prized, had crumbled in the wake of her own actions. Luke, who had once thrived in the glow of Anna's success, quickly realized the extent of his reliance on her influence. He had used her professional standing as a stepping stone for his own ambitions, but with Anna's fall from grace, everything he had taken for granted disappeared almost overnight. The connections he once leaned on, the opportunities he had assumed were within reach, all evaporated. Colleagues who once entertained his advances now distanced themselves, not wanting to be associated with the disgraced duo. Luke's position, already fragile, collapsed without Anna's support to buffer him from the fallout. Reality struck hard for both of them. What had once been a life filled with privilege and comfort turned into a nightmare of uncertainty. They now faced the stark reality of starting over from nothing. Their careers, once their strongest asset, were left in shambles. Financial ruin loomed large as they struggled to maintain even a semblance of their former lifestyle. The thrill of the affair that had once seemed so intoxicating and liberating had instead become the very thing that led to their downfall, a bitter reminder of the consequences of their betrayal. For Oliver, however, the days that followed the courtroom victory marked the beginning of a profound transformation. The legal battle had taken its toll, but the resolution brought with it a sense of freedom he hadn't expected. The weight of his marriage, the suffocating betrayal that had consumed him for months, was finally lifted. With it gone, Oliver found himself standing on the threshold of a new life, one where he could make decisions based purely on his own needs and desires, without the constant shadow of Anna's ambitions looming over him. He embraced the freedom wholeheartedly. Oliver began to rediscover parts of himself that had long been buried under the obligations and compromises of marriage. He took up hobbies he had abandoned years ago, photography being one of them. With a camera in hand, he found joy in capturing the world through his lens. Each photograph was more than just an image. It was a moment of personal rediscovery, a symbol of the new life he was crafting for himself. Travel, too, became a passion he had once only dreamed of indulging. Now, with no one to hold him back, Oliver explored places he had longed to visit, each journey a testament to his newfound independence. The sights and experiences became reminders of the life he was now free to create on his own terms. Alongside these personal ventures, Oliver found strength and solace in the support of the friends and family who had stood by him during his darkest moments. Their presence had been a lifeline, offering comfort when he needed it most. Among them, Julia was a constant, unwavering in her support. Their friendship deepened as they navigated the trials together, and in her, Oliver found not just a companion, but someone who truly understood his journey. The bond they shared, built on mutual respect and trust, was one of the most meaningful connections in his life. As Oliver reflected on the journey he had traveled, the betrayal, the divorce, the bitter legal fight, he felt the full weight of what he had endured. It had tested him in ways he never thought possible. But through that crucible of pain and loss, he had emerged stronger. He had discovered a resilience he didn't know he possessed, and with it, a clarity about what truly mattered in life. Even as he looked back on his marriage, Oliver was able to acknowledge that while it had ended in bitterness, it hadn't been without its moments of genuine happiness. Those memories, though tarnished by the betrayal, were still a part of his life's story. He didn't hold on to them with regret, but rather with an understanding that they were a necessary part of his journey towards self-discovery. In embracing this new chapter of his life, Oliver found a peace he hadn't thought possible. It was a quiet contentment that came from living life on his own terms, from knowing he had finally taken control of his own destiny. As he stood on the edge of this new beginning, he felt a sense of readiness, a willingness to face whatever the future held. His heart was open, his eyes clear, and for the first time in a long time, he was eager to embrace the possibilities that lay ahead. Thanks for watching this emotional story of love, lust, and lies. Hope it touched your heart. If you enjoyed it, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a fresh story every day. Love to hear your thoughts in the comments, so feel free to share your experiences and tell your story.